This is the Get a Life podcast, Ex-Cult Conversations.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Get a Life, Ex-Cult Conversations. Today we have Richard and Carmen that have joined us and our very special guest, Lindy Jacomb from New Zealand. Welcome, Lindy.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Lindy's going to walk us through a few things. First, she's going to start off and just give us a little quick overview about her life inside the Brethren and outside, and her current adventure into helping those that are still inside and currently needing to leave and seek help. So I'll let you take it away, Lindy.
Hi. Well, it's great to be here. I've enjoyed following along with the Get a Life podcast. I think what you're doing is a fascinating and brave undertaking. I don't really know where to start, but I suppose with, the basics. I was born in Auckland, New Zealand, and into an exclusive Brethren family there. I was a third of 6 children, and we grew up with the Brethren life, like some of your participants have described. Went to a normal primary school, but had to do the whole thing of being picked up at lunchtime and not being allowed to participate in sport competitions and that sort of thing. Then I went to the exclusive Brethren high school just as they were founding those, and then I began, as you only can do, working for an exclusive Brethren company when I left school at 17ish. Around this time, I guess I've always been a person who asked questions and wanted to understand the whys behind things. And in my teens, I was asking some big questions, existential questions, and understand why we lived like we did, and if there was a God, and if so, what was that God like, and all those kinds of things. And to cut a long story short, I began reading the Bible and I began reading the ministry, and I began seeing that the two things didn't really match up. I never intended to leave the Brethren, but I kept asking questions, and eventually I discovered that was to get me into a lot of trouble. And that it wasn't okay to ask questions, especially of Bruce Hales. I wrote a whole lot of my questions into a letter to him, which I sent to him and to a bunch of other elders in New Zealand, hoping they could answer my questions. Just really simple questions like, why we lived like we did, asking about certain practices, asking why I couldn't share the gospel with people around me, why I couldn't be a teacher or a nurse, why interracial marriage was banned in the Brethren, why we didn't allow mental health professional help, because at that time it wasn't allowed. Just quite ordinary questions, but nobody could answer them.
Do you think it was a case of they couldn't answer them, or they didn't want to?
I think some of them couldn't answer them. Some of them couldn't answer the questions as well as I think Bruce Hales could probably answer them, but he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to come out with what the actual answers are for those things. The
answers
tell the viewers. Sorry.
The answers were too embarrassing for them, I imagine.
Probably the answers were. They
knew why, but they didn't want to admit why.
That's right. I remember one elder. I said to him, why aren't we doing evangelizing and stuff if we believe that Jesus is the good news and the light of the world and stuff? And he said, we do the street preaching. And I said, but we give out these ancient little tracts that have got no contact details on them. So if somebody wanted to follow up and come along and get to know this God, there's no way for them to contact us. And he sort of said, you're right. I should put my name and number on the back of those. So I think there were probably quite a few things that were a bit embarrassing like that. So to kind of cut a long story short, I did eventually leave in 2008, so that's I think nearly 15 years ago, and I believe I was subsequently shut up and excommunicated in subsequent months, but I've never really been communicated with about the reasons for that. Yeah.
Let the viewers know your maiden name and other people that they might know to kind of put your ties together.
So yeah, I got married about 10 years ago, but before that, my maiden name is Simmons. Such a brethren thing to do, isn't it, to track down your maiden name? So yeah, my father's side Simmons, my mother's side was Wynne. So probably my father's side in particular, the Simmons surname is reasonably well known because in Auckland, or New Zealand anyway, quite a few of them have been reasonably high up the hierarchy, although my own particular father and grandfather were not of that ilk. They were a bit more downtrodden. But yeah, I was glad to get married and get away from that name, actually. And Braden, some of you have come across Braden Simmons. He's my brother. He's my next brother down. And yeah, it was a huge joy to be able to reconnect with him after he left the Brethren. He's apparently, you know, the viewers might have heard about the whole poison incident where Bruce Hales said that somebody was better to, you know, he was inquiring saying, what's the fastest way to kill yourself? Is it, you know, eat rat poison or arsenic? And he said that was all in the context of apparently him being asked what to do about a young man, which was referring to my brother Braden, who was contacting an outsider, which was apparently me, which I was fascinated to find out about because actually we had incredibly limited contact. I think he'd emailed me only a tiny number of times and he'd barely said a line or two. We'd had, you know, next to no communication. There'd been no influence going on at all. And this had been after a period of years of no communication at all from anybody in there for me. And yeah, for them to, you know, me to hear the stuff hitting the media about, you know, the leader of the Brethren encouraging a young man that it was better to kill himself than to contact an outsider. I was absolutely horrified, especially knowing the context that he'd barely contacted me. Also, he was, you know, in a really vulnerable position at that time. And not only that, but that ministry was preached publicly and distributed to every household in the Brethren via the whitebook. I believe it was number 161. And then more oddly, I've heard that the printed ministry books that compile the whitebooks, I think they come out every few months or something, those words have been mysteriously edited out.
Of course they were.
Yeah. Which you wonder why they would feel the need to redact like that.
Yeah, of course, it was
It's
also
strange.
printed in the Times newspaper in the UK, which probably wasn't what they intended.
Yeah, and they can't really get rid of that, can they? Yeah. Yeah, so
not
not
so much for the gospel, you know.
yeah, so much for the gospel. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have a
But yeah.
book that you wrote. Did you want to read some of that to the viewers?
Yeah, I would actually. Yeah, so a couple of you might have seen it floating around, but there's this little book called The Little Bird, or The Story of the Little Bird. And a friend of mine has printed some of these for me, and somebody else also put it onto YouTube with some backing music for me. It moves a bit fast to read all the words, but you know, it was never actually written for public sharing. It was a highly personal and emotional and vulnerable sort of account that I did late at night in my bedroom one night when I was still in the Brethren in that very difficult year, 2008, of when I was in the process of realising that I was being made to leave home. And, you know, I had wrestled with, I had wrestled so much with how do I describe to my family what's going on, because, you know, they're in shock, they're defensive, they're trying to persuade you to stay. You know, there's so many thoughts going through their mind. They're looking for lots of reasons to discredit you or what you're saying. And you're trying to, you know, when you're in that position, you feel that it's so rational, the questions are so valid, And yet there's just this complete inability to get through to each other. And I felt we were just getting locked and unable to get through to each other. And it was so frustrating. I was so desperate. And so one night I just sat down and drew this, this story just kind of fell out of my pen. I guess I was trying to reach for metaphors to describe what it felt like, what was happening to me. And so, yeah, lots of people since then, when they've looked at it, have said, oh, that, they identify so much with the allegory. So, yeah, I'd love to read some of it. There's actually kind of two parts because I wrote this first part before I left. And, yeah, the copy's not very good because I actually only have a photocopy myself. I think the original was with my parents still. And then I wrote a second part a couple of years after leaving, kind of as I reflected on how the journey had been. So, yeah, I'd love to do that. And, yeah, I don't know if I can, if you're able to see much of it, but I'll try, eh? So, so settle back. Also, it's a bit of an odd name. It says by Junia Peters at the bottom. And I put that there when my friend printed this book because I was way too frightened to put my own name to it. I knew that my parents and the brethren would be really upset with my friend for publishing them, even though it's not formally published with an ISBN or anything. I was so frightened. I thought I have to put a pseudonym there. And so, Peter was because of my grandfather. His name was Peter, and he was excommunicated before I ever met him, and he died before I got to meet him. So that was meant to him. And Junia is a fascinating wee little story, a woman in the New Testament who is written about as being an apostle, but lots of the male translators couldn't believe that a female was being referred to as an apostle, and so they attached an S on the end of her name to make the name masculine. But actually, in the originals, it is Junia. It is definitely a female who is recorded as being an apostle, a sent one from God, in quite a high, status. So that was an acknowledgement, I guess, being, an unorthodox woman. That, it was. I think she's cool. Yeah. Okay, so here's the story. So it just says, once there was a bird, just a little bird. It says, everyone loved her, so bright and cheerful, beautiful. She brightens my world, especially when she sang. I can't actually sing, but that was just a metaphor for saying, hey, I had the joy of life in me, and that did bring life to people around me. I was loved. I was part of a family. But the little bird was in a cage, and as she grew bigger, the cage grew smaller until she could not fit anymore. She could hardly sing. Oh, sorry, I don't know what's happening there. Some big, I don't know what that is. The lighting's being a bit funny, eh? She could hardly sing. She couldn't flap her wings. She was trapped, imprisoned, and she would cry and cry when no one looked. Some people noticed. What's wrong, little bird? They said. You have got plenty of food in here. It's really nice and sheltered in your cage. We do love having you here, little bird. The little bird still had sparks of life deep within, and she wasn't the sort to mope. So she'd do things like memorize positive poems and try to keep on being cheerful. And there's a little bird reciting a poem which says, 2 men looked out through prison bars. One saw mud and the other saw stars. No one can stop me dreaming, she's saying to herself. And in her head, she would dream. There's a little bird with her eyes closed, and she's dreaming and dreaming. And it says, dream of all she could do and where she would fly, pouring her song from the sky. But they were only dreams. Reality was still a cage, an inescapable wire, and there was no hope. The bird was counting the days, the seconds, living to die for an end to the misery. And in her heart, you can see there that there's a little free bird flying. But reality is still a cage, and nothing ever changed, except One day, when the bird was watching the sky, looking up, looking out, she saw an amazing thing, which made hope leap in her and rekindled her desire to live. There's a little bird in a cage in a big castle, and there's all these other birds flying in the sunshine. Wow! There were other birds like her, free birds, birds not in cages, birds that could flap their wings, birds that carried sunshine and song everywhere. Wow. Birds that cheered people up and were free, birds that could feel the wind in their wings, birds with other birds enjoying each other all together, birds that were themselves and were good and were free. And she cried out, and the free birds heard her, and they came and talked to her. They talked encouraging, wonderful things. I'll be your friend. People everywhere need more songs. Come and join us. Of course you won't die if you fly. Of course you can get out of that cage. There's so much to do. And her heart lifted and sparks of life leaped into flame. Maybe life would be worth living after all if she could fly and be free. And then she made another important discovery. The bars of her cage were only made of straw. But the people found out, and the little bird was in trouble. They said lots of things. They said she was bad. They said that the cage was good, that she mustn't leave the cage, that it wasn't safe outside the cage, that God wanted her in the cage, to sing there in the cage. They said that they were only in the prison because it was good and it was safe, even though sometimes they wanted to be free too. They said to her, you must stay in this cage. I think there's actually a couple of pages mixed up in here. Worse still, they appealed to her heart too. And the little bird's heart was torn into 1,000 million pieces because she loved them. She loved them. And so the reality of her situation tore her apart. And here's the wee bird crying and crying. And all the things that the people are saying, you know, you'll recognize if you're a former member. We love you, don't go. If you go, we can't come with you and you can't come back. You belong to us. How can you do this to us? We will miss you terribly. You have a demon. You are selfish. You are breaking my heart. We love you and we can't bear to think of life without you. You don't love us if you go. You are crazy. You are mentally unwell. The pain. Here's a huge wave. The guilt, the confusion, and the hurt that's crashing down onto the little bird's head. The pain. And then there's like a huge thunderstorm here with lots of rain, and it says, the terrible pain which thundered and cracked and poured storms in her head. It bit into her. The rivers of guilt and sadness and despair that threatened to overflow her. The awful, indescribable pain. How had this happened? How did she end up drowning in the mud and the rain like this when all she wanted to do was to spread sunshine and be free? She wanted to die. Yet, will though she might, her heart would not stop beating. It's a very disheveled looking bird with the heart still beating. And where there is life, there is God, and where God is, there is hope. And so that is what I wrote in 2008 and on the cusp of being about to leave.
Wow. I have chills all over me. That's really good.
Yeah. And then, you know, it carries on, and I won't read it all now, but there's a couple of pages that I think are encouraging to anybody else who feels like they might be in that place, because hey, the story does go on. you know, she did fly away in the end. She broke out of her wee cage, made new friends and new family. A wonderful couple took me in, so that's why there's little you know, pair of birds there. They took me in and made a nest for me. I describe, you know, learning all sorts of things and encounters with cats. And yeah, I wrote, you know, some viewers might recognize this. I've put here, there were days when the little bird forgot that she was free and when she felt she was back in a tiny cage. But, and then there were other days when she was too afraid to fly, too afraid to try. But, you know, that each time she'd pick herself back up again and get back out into living. And it says here, with a lot of help from friends. And I love that image because there's all these other birds helping to hold her wings and helping her to fly, and then others carrying a big net to catch her if she falls. And I just love that because it's been so true of my journey that, you know, it's been through the incredible support and you know, nurturing and friendship of others that I've been able to heal and find my feet. And sometimes she felt that her heart was so big she wondered how it didn't burst. And then there's, yeah, at the end it says, most important of all in the lessons of life, she learned that there are some things in life that make your feathers fall out, which makes it really hard to fly. But in this world, there are amazing people who lovingly, generously, unselfishly bring their own feathers to give to you. They give their own feathers so that those who have lost theirs can fly again. And the most amazing thing will happen that before, when you only had dull brown feathers, when the sun and the wind couldn't blow on them, but now new feathers will grow, new ones, strong ones, beautiful ones, colourful ones. And every time another aspect of your personality, your talents and your gifts are encouraged and allowed to flourish, more feathers will grow, unique ones and wonderful ones. Thank you. I love you, it says.
That's beautiful. Wow.
So there you go. There's a wee story that I feel like still sums up my journey.
That's a really special way to present it to everybody.
And it's amazing because what you wrote in 2008 is what you're doing now, isn't it? I mean, you are the little birds that come to the window and speak to the ones in the cage. So that was prophetic. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's so true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had thought that yeah. You I don't know, I feel like everybody's journey is unique, but for me I feel like, you know, certainly the first 5 to 10 years I was very focused on building a new life and finding my feet and, you know, trying to wrap my head around life out here. And then I think in particular it was when my brother Braden got kicked out, and then hot on his heels, my father being shut up for 2 years and then kicked out, I realized that, hey, I might have successfully gone on to build a new life that I loved, and I might be doing well, and I might have support and community and friendship and healing and everything. But it made me realize, oh my goodness, there are fresh bodies falling off the bandwagon. This is not just something in the past. This is, there are currently people being really harmed by how the Exclusive Brethren or the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church treat people. And I just felt like it's not right for me to stand by and ignore that and, you know, carry on living my life.
And we've all learnt so much, often the hard way on our journey, that you know, why wouldn't we share what we've learned so people don't have to, you know, they can learn it the easy way rather than the hard way. It's nearly all about information, isn't it? I mean, there is the side of, you know, practical help and the side of friendship, but, you know, mostly what people in their need in order to escape is knowledge and information. And how do you do this? And also to expose all the stuff they've been indoctrinated with that isn't actually true. Because, you know, it's like, there's a brilliant metaphor, like the bars of the cage were made of straw. I mean, most of the cage is in everyone's head, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
It's not, it is made of straw. It's made of ideas, it's made of doctrine. And once
Yeah.
you see that those are not true, they're not factual, that they disappear. There's no substance to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Very
And I
potent.
think information gives you the knowledge that you have choices. I think that's such a big thing, is that when you're in there, you think that the Brethren's narrative of life and of God and of morality and of lifestyle and everything is the only right narrative or the only true narrative. Whereas, yeah, information can make you see there are other narratives that are entirely plausible about not only about how to live, but about who God is and about, you know, how you should live. And that gives you choices. It makes you realize, hey, I've got, I do have choices here. I do have autonomy.
Because I kind of feel like, you know, God's given us very powerful and potent brains and reasoning, rational thinking facilities. And under the Brethren system, as I experienced it, you didn't need any of that because you were just like a computer that's programmed. You don't think, you just do.
Well, that's the saying of Bruce, isn't it? That you know, he used to say, I think back when I was in there, I'll do the thinking, you do the doing.
Yeah.
We've quoted it at the back of our little Thinking of Leaving booklet, because at the back we say, hey, we can improve on this quote. You do the thinking, you do the doing.
Yeah.
So let the viewers know what you've been up to lately with what you've gotten together. And I know you're going to want to go through and show the insiders how to use what you've gotten going. Do you want to explain to them what the Olive Leaf Network is all about? Yeah,
I'd love to share about the Olive Leaf Network. So the Olive Leaf Network, it's a brand new fledgling charitable entity that has been established here in New Zealand. So it is, primarily we're hoping to be able to work in Aotearoa, New Zealand, but also we can very definitely have a global reach and offer some of our support internationally as well. So it's been a long time coming. I think, you know, to recap in the bigger picture, there have been a couple of websites in the past that have supported ex-brethren, PBCC and Wikipedia and the like. And at least a couple of those were closed down as a result of litigation from the Brethren. And I think the last one closed down, I think it might be more than a decade ago. So it's actually been a long time since there's been a kind of, an online hub where Brethren can go, that's, you know, by ex-brethren for ex-brethren. So I think it's been a long time coming, and obviously in the interim there's been the explosion of social media and amazing forums like Facebook that have been really, really profound for enabling ex-brethren to connect with each other. But it's become increasingly clear to many of us ex-members that there does need to be some kind of a place where people who are thinking of leaving or who have left can reach out in addition to the Facebook groups to connect with others and to find resourcing and support. So I myself, along with a small group of others, began, I'm a person who likes to take action, I think, and we began to go, hey, you know, we think the timing's right. We think the time's right to do this. And at first we were just going to do a website, but we quickly realized that actually, you know, even to pay for a website, you need, if it's not going to be all on an individual, you need to have a charitable entity or an entity behind it to receive funds so that there's transparency for those funds, and that you can apply for funding grants and things like that. So we realized, we needed to go, you know, the whole way and create a proper, formal charitable entity. And, you know, that has pros and cons. It comes with some administration and some bureaucracy, but I think the positive of that is that, it's got, more kind of public recognition that it's a proper thing, and there's more transparency with accounts and things like that. So yeah, we're really excited to have received our charitable status at the end of last year and to have launched our website just a few weeks ago. So yeah, we're still fledgling, we're still establishing ourselves, but yeah, it's fantastic to have that up and running. Yeah, and I'd love to show you around the website. That's probably the easiest way to do it. We also have a presence on LinkedIn and on Facebook and Instagram. So I encourage people to check us out on there. We're regularly posting interesting and inspiring and informative things. So do, share that and follow us on there. Yeah, how do you want to do this? I could show you around the website now.
Yeah, go ahead and share it. Yeah.
And talk about it as we go. Okay, so share screen. You'll have to tell me if we're definitely, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
You can see it now. Very good.
We can see it.
Okay, so this is our website, the Olive Leaf Network. And yeah, I guess at first, can you see my mouse as well when I hover around, or not so much?
Absolutely, we can.
Okay. So I've just run straight over here to the New Zealand flag sign, and there's an international site as well that you can look at. So the reason why we've split that off is that under international, we've got a whole lot of globally relevant websites and resources that are like of definite interest to anybody from whatever country you're from. But, aside from those resourcing, the website is basically a replication. And eventually, yeah, we'll have other websites for other countries with resources that are specific to those countries as well. So yeah, that's what that there is about. So the Olive Leaf Network, I guess, first of all, a brief comment about the name. So obviously it's, kind of a religious name because it refers to the story in the ark, the story in Genesis where, Noah's trapped in the ark, and then this little bird, this dove, brings a leaf back to them. And it signifies that there's new lands ahead where there's olive trees, and olive trees, to the ancients meant they were like a symbol of everything bountiful, everything good, of prosperity, of success, of food and oil and healing. You could not pick a symbol that represented flourishing and new life more beautifully. And yeah, we loved that image because we feel like that is what, we want to offer to people as a symbol of hope, that flourishing and new life can be ahead of you. Even though, like Noah in the ark, you find yourself in a scene of huge destruction, and, it's destruction that's connected to a religious situation as well. So yeah, so that's the story of the name. And I also liked it because, I feel that, we're not flashy, we're not big, we're not powerful, just like a little bird is not big and powerful. And a little leaf is not big and powerful. It's just, well, I should say it's not powerful, it is powerful, but it's small and fragile, and yet it's powerful. And I think that's how we feel as well. Groups like the PBCC and other religious groups have got a huge amount of power and a huge amount of money that we just simply don't have. And yet, yeah, we still think that even though we're small and fragile, we have got a power of our own. Yeah. So that's the first line there you'll see says that we provide aid and advocacy and awareness for former members of high demand religious groups. And in particular, we provide support to people who leave the PBCC. So, if we were to briefly break down those 3 A's, actually, I'll hop into another page under what we do to describe that a wee bit more. Oh no, here we go. If I go further down, it's there. So yeah, under aid, it says we connect former members of high demand religious groups with wider support people and organisations. So yeah, we're not able to provide a lot of the support ourselves. We can't give legal advice or financial support or even accommodation ourselves at the moment, but we can definitely connect people with other amazing agencies that are, in most countries that already exist to help people who are in vulnerable and transitory positions. Advocacy, we advocate for the well-being and the rights of those who leave high demand religious groups. We think that's really important. Just as people have got, freedom to practice their religious beliefs, people have also got a freedom to leave their religion and to change their religious beliefs and be supported in those choices as well. And lastly, awareness. We raise awareness about the experiences of former members. So if I was to, I'll just jump under what we do, because that enables us to give a little bit more of a description about each of those things. So if we scroll down, just to explain a bit more about aid. We've got a few sort of things that are in the wings of being established, like establishing a bit of a peer support network. People who have had experiences themselves about leaving a high demand religious group, or there's also a lot of just caring citizens in society who want to support and who care about this kind of thing. People who can offer friendship, who might be able to offer some accommodation, who might be able to help people gaining employment, helping people find a new church if that's what they want. The needs, as we know, can be incredibly diverse. There's a huge difference between, say a man in his 50s who leaves and has to navigate custody battles or divorce settlements or fights over companies. That's very different from, say, an 18-year-old female who leaves, who's not married and, has very little professional work experience. So it's got to be highly tailored to the individual. Under advocacy, just to expand on that a wee bit more, as we know, one of the biggest things that's a challenge for people when they leave is often their social isolation. And I think the Brethren are very effective at making outsiders, especially other ex-brethren, there's a huge sense that we are evil and wicked and not to be trusted and that we're unsafe people. I know that I experienced that when I left. I was terrified to contact, ex-brethren. Ex-brethren were far more wicked and evil and frightening than just an average outsider. And it took me a long time to start reaching out to ex-brethren, with any sense of, desire to connect. So, but we do want to offer that to people when they're ready, that, we're really happy to help work with them to establish a new community, new social networks, new friendships, and to, just make sure that they know that whatever they do, they don't need to do it alone. If they've got priests coming around to visit them, we can come and sit with them, or we can provide support and encouragement through that. Or if they do need to go to court for something, we can go with them to that. If they want someone to take them to the doctors or whatever it is, we can help with that isolation. You don't need to face the journey alone. And lastly, awareness. There's a whole lot of things here that, could grow arms and legs. There's a lot that could be done in the area of raising awareness about leaving high demand religious groups. There's already a lot of people doing amazing work who have left, Hasidic Jewish communities or Mormons or JWs or other kind of fringe spiritual or religious groups. But there's also a couple of things in there that we would love to encourage people to do. Like we encourage people to, write a little memoir of their own experiences. And my motivation for that personally comes out of, my grandfather was kicked out when my mum was 18. We never saw a photo of him, never heard mention of him. He was, cancelled. He was a non-person. And it wasn't until I was in my older teen years and, thinking through things, I thought I really want to contact him. I'd like to know who he is. But of course, that, in my mind as well, I knew he was very, very wicked. There's no way I should do that. And then we got word that he had died. And I was so gutted because I thought, I never actually had the opportunity to meet this man. And upon leaving, I immediately started contacting people who knew him to find out more about what he was like. And, they, of course, painted a completely different picture to this kind of, this non-person that you know, we didn't know anything about other than that he was this evil blank slate kind of thing. You know, they painted a picture of a lovely man who loved gardening and roses, and he was a great ballet, a great waltz dancer, ballroom dancer. And yeah, when I contacted his wife, he'd remarried. She gave me a couple of documents that he had kept, and they were heartbreaking documents. They were his, you know, legal papers from when his divorce went through and when he had to hand over his house and things like that for his wife and children. They gave testimony of what he gave testimony in court about the incredible psychological duress he was put under by the elders of the church. And then, yeah, more heartbreakingly, there are a couple of things like him writing to births, deaths and marriages in New Zealand, looking for information on his 6 children, who they'd married, where they lived, if they'd had any children. And it was so devastating to see that, because you could see that he cared about his children and his grandchildren, which included me. You know, I didn't know he knew I existed, but he'd written my name down. Wow. And I was born. You know, he wanted to know about us. He wanted to connect with us. He loved us. It was very clear. And yet, aside from that, there was no record. There was no journal entries. There was no personal account of what he'd been through, and no way to get to know this man. And so for me, you know, I encourage anybody who leaves or is leaving to, however short, you know, write something down or take a video recording about who you are, so that your grandchildren and children and great nephews and nieces that might one day come out after you, so that they can know who you are. Yeah, anyway, I've talked for a long time. Has anyone got any questions, or shall I carry on to the rest of the website?
No, this is perfect. I do want to point out just what it's been staring at me this whole time, in case some people don't get through it all. Can you explain the really quick exit sign, the red exit site for the viewers?
Yeah, so there's an exit site button up there, and if you hover over it, it does have a wee information pop up, I believe. So it says, clicking this exit button will immediately redirect you to another website. And yeah, quick exit buttons are on a lot of websites where you might have people viewing your website who are in an environment that would frown on them accessing this website. So it's often on websites for domestic abuse support agencies and things like that, because, you know, you might have somebody enter the room and you don't want to be caught on this website because you know it will make you unsafe or bring, you know, pressure. And so you can quickly tap that, and instead of, you know, the theory is that instead of you suddenly closing down a browser and, you know, looking guilty, it can just snap you to another website, which you can then, you know, be happily browsing around. Yeah. So that's, yeah, just a useful little function. Mm-hmm. And we've got a similar function that I'm really, you know, I think it's really, really important, because we do know that in the Brethren, there are people who are experiencing domestic abuse, or, you know, they're unsafe. That if you scroll down the bottom here, I don't know if you can see my wee arrow. Yeah. But we've got Facebook icon, Instagram icon, LinkedIn icon, and then there's a little wee shield there. And this shield, it's not actually a social media icon, but it's a wonderful feature that I believe the Women's Refuge in New Zealand developed. And it's a pop-up that if I click on it, it will then bring up this pop-up, and it's a wee guide about what to do if you're experiencing domestic abuse. It's got so much overlap with anybody trying to leave any kind of coercive or controlling environment. It's incredibly helpful. So I encourage any viewers to have a navigate around that and to pass that on. But yeah, so it says if you're experiencing family violence, don't worry, the information in this pop-up won't appear in your browser history. So because it's a pop-up, it actually doesn't create a path or URLs in your browser history, which again, especially in organizations that control and monitor browser history, you know, that could get you in trouble. So yeah, and if you enter that, then it's got a whole lot of things, like it's got a wee plan, things there about how to make a plan for leaving, information on getting out, information on what to do if you're in danger. It's got a chat function if you want to contact somebody through there to have a chat with. So yeah, I encourage anybody who feels that they're in a coercive or controlling or unsafe environment, whether it's specifically partner violence or family violence or not, you could definitely use this feature, and the people through Women's Refuge would absolutely be able to help you. So yeah, really encourage people to check that out. Yeah,
that is perfect. Yeah. Do you want to explain to the listeners why you use the word high demand religious group in this?
Great question. Great question. So somewhere, I'm just trying to think, I think it's under our story. I'll just navigate to there because it's just got a little wee bit of information on who we are, which you can read. It's, we're a whole bunch of different people, different beliefs, different backgrounds and experiences.
There you go, at the very bottom, yeah.
Yeah, and then at the bottom, we've got a note on the language used on our site. So just briefly, we've got there a note about using terms like excommunication rather than confined or withdrawn from, because we do also support and are networked in with people leaving other groups other than the Brethren, and they're kind of more generically known terms. So we've got the third bullet point there is about we use the term high demand religious groups. As it says there, we use this term to describe any group that allegedly places high demands on, significant areas of a member's life. There's a document there that can be clicked on or read and downloaded. I think it's like a 4 or 5 page document where we go into it in a bit more depth. So encourage the viewers to check that out.
And you do have on the other page that we were on previously, there's a little quiz you can take to find out if you're in a high demand religious group.
Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, there's the little Ollie, the mascot, and he's saying, hey, click on this here and you can take a wee quiz, because, and that can help you determine whether you are in one or not, because oftentimes people, you don't really, like that saying about a fish doesn't really know the water that it swims in. It's so used to it. It's difficult to get an objective perspective on it. So that quiz might help people to look objectively at their environment to see if, it is actually high demand. To kind of briefly summarize what we call a high demand religious group, we've got this little tool, if you like, or a framework that we find helpful. And we call it the high demand hand. Have you got that image there, Cheryl? Mm-hmm. Maybe that show on the screen briefly. We find this a helpful visual tool for describing what we call a high demand religious group. The term itself is from sociology, from academic sociology. It's used, other terms are also often used, like high cost or high control groups. We went with high demand, not for any particular reason, I think, other than those other ones. The high demand hand is, Cheryl might be able to bring it up soon. Otherwise, it is
coming up.
That's all right. Yeah, it's also in our Thinking of Leaving document. But basically, we use that to say, hey, here are 5 key areas of any human being.
Can you see that, or is it? You might have to stop share in order to. Can you see that, or no?
Okay.
No, not yet.
No. Okay.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing, Cheryl, and then
see if this comes up for you.
Yeah, so the wording's probably a bit too small for people to see, but
can you see it now?
No, it's good. It's good on a laptop.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. So when we're asking if a group is high demand or not, we look at these 5 broad areas of a person's life, which are relationships, resources, lifestyle, education, and employment, and we ask, does the religious group have a significant and frequent impact on all 5 of those areas? So, to break those down a bit further, relationships, that might mean sexual or romantic relationships, or it could mean, family and friendship. Resources does include finances, but it's sort of wider than that. It's also your time and your assets, and it's anything that's kind of an asset to you. Education, that also refers to information. It's adolescent and childhood education, as well as adult education, like professional development. It's all encompassing, and it definitely also includes, as you were mentioning earlier, Richard, access to information. Employment, so that's broadly either paid work or it could also be unpaid work. And lifestyle is a very broad category that includes people's religious beliefs and moral choices, living standards, where they live, all that kind of thing. So yeah, when we're asking if a group is high demand, we encourage people to look at all 5 of these areas and to ask, does this group significantly and frequently impact me in all 5 of these areas? So obviously there's some groups that, you know, they might deeply impact your lifestyle or your resources, but they have very little influence at all over your education options, or they have no influence at all over your employment. Whereas I think, you know, for the exclusive brethren, it's very clear that all 5 of those areas are profoundly impacted by the group's beliefs and practices.
It's also interesting because the brethren and other such groups often claim to be a mainstream Christian church, but if you look at mainstream Christian churches and apply this test to them, you will find that yes, they may impact 1 or 2, but no mainstream church is going to have affect all 5 of these areas of life. So
that's right. Yeah.
Distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're not mainstream at all. It's incredible that they can think, you know, that they might possibly claim that. It's, yeah, I think that they need some PR help there. I think they'd be better to just own the fact that, you know, they'd be better to just own the fact that they're, you know, that they are a minority religious group. Under religious freedom laws, you know, they do have the right to live a minority religious life, but also under religious freedom laws, people have a right to leave and to change those beliefs and to have those choices supported. Yeah, it's interesting in New Zealand here, there's in the media a lot over the last decade or so has been a commune on the West Coast called Gloria Vale, and they actually genuinely are a commune. They all live together in this one place, and yeah, you know, finances and work and living and everything's all combined. And so they've had a lot of sort of notoriety and publicity, and you know, the brethren, it might be said, oh, the brethren aren't like that, they don't live in a commune. But you know, I've been saying a lot that the brethren live in a psychosocial commune. Like, they might not physically live in one place, but psychologically and socially, their doctrine and practices have created the same effect as living in a commune as what you do with the people in Gloria Vale. And again, it's through all those 5 things. You know, when you can only be educated in an exclusive brethren school, that's a huge restriction on your choice. You can only be employed by an exclusive brethren employer. You know, that's massive. That's a huge, unbelievable restriction and a huge limitation on the opportunities and potential. It's shocking to me that,
I mean, although, you know, they're going to come back and say that none of this is true, right? But if a family was to go and take their child out of a one school global school, you know, they would be completely, they would pay for it. Same as, right? Same as not working at a brethren. If your son got placed at this brethren place of business and he chose not to, you know, you would pay for that. So even though their PR comes back and says, oh, you know, well, this isn't true and that's not true, we all know, all of us hundreds and hundreds of ex-members know that it is true, because if you did it, you would have to pay some way for it.
Yeah. And I mean, if they do start saying, and I'm not like 100% aware of what their spokesperson or their PR kind of lines are at the moment, but if they are saying that they can be employed elsewhere or can get education elsewhere, yeah, then, you know, I encourage people who are still in the brethren, you know, take that up, try that. If they're saying that, give that a try, you know, sign up to go and become a pilot or a teacher or something.
And have a female, if she wants to go and be a doctor, go be a doctor.
Yeah, or an actress or an artist or whatever it might be. That is the line they're giving. I mean, the other line that I do know they give is that they say, oh, it's not the church doing this, it's an individual's choice, which is an extremely slippery response because, and I know this has come up recently in the Gloria Vale employment case, where there's been a big employment case in New Zealand questioning whether the men and women in the workforce are volunteers or whether they are, because they work without pay, or whether they're employees and therefore come under employee laws in New Zealand. But yeah, it's come up there, this question of, oh, they're voluntarily doing these incredibly long hours and these really servile tasks. And yeah, I believe a psychologist recently testified, I have yet to see the recording of it, but a psychologist testified that, this whole question of, is it really personal choice when if you don't obey, there's a huge cost to it.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Psychologists use this terminology of a high cost group. High cost if you don't obey, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about when we use high demand language, that there's these quite significant demands placed on all these areas of your life, and if you don't obey them, sure, it might be your choice to obey them or not, but if you choose to not obey them and it results in this incredibly high cost, such as losing your entire family or your employment, that is not really a free choice. That's what all of us have suffered. There is no way I wanted to lose my entire family and my community and my friends. It absolutely devastated me, and I still live with a form of complex PTSD as a result of that, like I think many ex-brethren do. It's a devastating and ruinous effect on my life, and it is not something I would have ever chosen, and yet it was unavoidable for me. I couldn't stay in there. They wouldn't allow me to stay in there when I was questioning Bruce Hales and questioning his teaching and his authority. I was forced out. So yeah, that's the language of high demand religious groups. Some people say, well, aren't they cults and this kind of thing? And under some definitions of cult, yes, it looks like they've got a lot of cult-like aspects, but we didn't go with that language because it is kind of amorphous language these days. Some people might talk about a vegan cult or all sorts of other things, and so it's kind of a bit of an ambiguous term. So we felt that because high demand religious group has got rigorous academic research that's going into it in a bunch of different spheres, there's good background and foundational information to say this is what it is.
And they can't really deny that, because there's all their ministry, and it sets out all the demands in black and white, quite literally, doesn't it? So
the quiz on the website is for anybody in there. It's such a good quiz to take. It's very specific. You can share the website screen again if you want, Lindy. But yeah, okay, it is. Yeah. It's take the quiz.
Yeah,
right. And when you take the quiz, make sure you're sitting in your own choices, and not in something that's been told to you, right? Sit in your choices.
Yeah, that's a good point. Cheryl. Yeah, no, the brethren are most definitely a psychosocial commune. Like you just look through it all, and I think it's tricky because Gloria Vale is very obvious to the outsider that it's a commune. The brethren, it's not so obvious because they say, oh, but they do walk out on the streets, and they do live in suburbs like others, and they do to some extent participate in in wider normal life. Although I was going to say they go to supermarkets and libraries. Well, increasingly they don't, because now they've got their own supermarkets as well, and yeah, I understand there's restrictions on library access and stuff as well. So I guess increasingly they're not actually participating in wider public life. They don't use public transport, things like that. But yeah, it's like, well, they might live in ordinary suburbs, but to the outsider, no one knows that you can't move house or you can't move suburb or city without permission. Ben Woodbury or somebody in one of the other podcasts recently talking about how, even if you want to move to another town, you have to apply and you could get rejected. Or I know, I was in there when Bruce Hales was moving people to Argentina, like making people move entire countries, which was a huge upheaval and oftentimes very distressing for those families, and yet they felt they had no choice in that. So yeah, you can't move house or move suburb or move city without permission. Then are you not in a type of a commune?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
sorry, go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
No.
I was just going to ask a question that's come up a few times, and I don't expect you to have a magic answer, but it's the kind of question that I think you are going to get inevitably if you haven't already. And that is, you've got very good advice and resources here for people who are actually victims of physical or sexual abuse, but you also get a number of people who are currently in the Brethren or who have now left the Brethren who know of unresolved cases of sexual and physical abuse inside the Brethren that have never been reported to the authorities. What would you say about that kind of situation where you know about something, you know the Brethren are covering it up? It's a very difficult situation. As I say, I'm not expecting an answer, but it might be useful just to discuss that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything that anybody is aware of, and obviously especially if it's got criminal or legal repercussions, contact the police. If you felt nervous to do that, another thing you could do is talk to your medical doctor. Most people in there do use and have their own personal medical doctor, and I also would strongly encourage people to visit their medical doctor alone. I think back to when I was in the process of leaving and I was being accused of being mentally unwell by family members. I think they were just desperate to find something to pin my questioning on. But yeah, I was taken to a psychologist and to a medical doctor, a GP. And both times I had a senior family member with me. And I think it's incredibly important that people go alone, because you should be able to freely speak yourself at any age. You can go to your doctor, 16, 17 without a parent. You don't, push for that, that's your right. So I think going to professional portals like that to ask for help, people are also very welcome to contact us, of course, if they want guidance. But as a first port of call, we would always be referring you to relevant authorities. Anonymous stuff can be sent through. Like, we've got a PO box, people could write and send stuff to us. I know that people are incredibly frightened of repercussions, or of it being traced back to them, that they blew the whistle. And there are very real repercussions for that at times. So I understand the fear, but there are definitely anonymous ways to report that kind of information, or to get it out there and to hold people to account. But we know that there are payoffs that have happened. Some of them have been very public, like the ones around Tony McCorkle in Australia. But I know that there are many other alleged cases, including here in New Zealand. People have been paid off to remain silent, to protect the testimony, to protect the reputation. And I encourage anybody to ask, what are you protecting here? Is it just a simple case of protecting the reputation of the testimony and it being a good thing? Or are you actually protecting an abuser and protecting enablers and allowing them to probably continue? Because we do know that most people who have acted out or who are abusive in any kind, they don't change without very, very stringent and professional help. And if they're not held to account, then I say you're part of the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good point. Such a good point.
Yeah, I think with anything, there's a powerful film called Spotlight, which put a spotlight on sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. Incredibly powerful film, and it would ring true with many of the viewers, I think, as we look at other situations that we know of. But it sort of shows how in any situation of abuse or coercive control and that kind of thing, there's usually a web and a number of enablers and participants who allow the thing to be fostered in secrecy and silence, and who allow it to continue. And so, yeah, anybody, if you know about anything, have a realistic look at the part that you are playing by how you're responding. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Well, should we have a quick look? I guess the main other thing is, because we've got a contact us page there where you can, there's a few ways you can contact us, and then we've got a support us tab, which we can jump back to later. But I guess the main, the really useful part of our site, as I see it, is our resources tab. So we've got lots of resources there. And for New Zealand, I'll jump to the New Zealand one and then to the international one. But we've got our Thinking of Leaving booklet there. Now, that was created a couple of years ago by a bunch of former members. And we are so glad to be able to use that on this site. It goes through a whole lot of areas that you have to consider when you leave. And, if you're listening to this and you're not a leaver yourself, but you want to understand more what it's like to leave, have a look at this document, because it shows you how all-encompassing it is to have to leave. You're having to think through everything, your medical records, your family photographs, what you pack and take, what you're going to do for employment, what the repercussions are going to be on your family. It is honestly like planning your own death, except then you're also moving to a brand new country. It's complicated. It is, yeah. It's sort of super complicated and easy as well. I don't want to make it so overwhelming that people are too frightened to leave. It's doable, but it is massive. It's a hugely life-altering thing to do, to leave a high-demand religious group. If we scroll further down, you can see their general support organisations in New Zealand. And if you open up that, we've got a whole lot of things there, like under category sexual abuse or problem sexual behaviour recovery. We know that there's a lot of that goes on in there. And I also am hearing, some stories of not just sexual abuse, but people who are engaging in quite harmful online sexual activity that is, even considered immoral by the brethren, but that it's going on in there, which really worries me from the perspective that there's the pathways for people to engage in this stuff, but the brethren, unlike the rest of the world, as far as I know, are not also talking about it and sharing resources for people who might have unhealthy online addictions that are harming them or their families. Because it's still believed, oh, no, that doesn't happen in here, we don't do it. Yeah. It means they're not also being open with recovery tools and avenues. We see the same thing going on with the alcohol. Doug Watt, the spokesperson for the Brethren, just said to the journalist a couple of weeks ago in the Radio New Zealand article, he said he denied that there's a drinking culture in there. And I'm thinking, why do they keep denying that there are these things happening among them? Would they not be better to, just like every other organisation in this world, to say, hey, yeah, this is something that we have to deal with, and here are a whole lot of wonderful avenues for support. Talk about this, When I was in there, 15 or longer than that, years ago, in my last year of school, our English teacher made us in our last year all study at length a video documentary on a alcohol-fueled crash where a young man killed his friend. I can't remember the name of it now, but and I look back and I think there's a reason she chose that. There's a reason we studied that extensively in our English literature class. But that was one of the only portals that we had for discussing drinking culture. There was nothing being promoted by the church. Anyway, spiritual and religious resources. We've got a couple of things in there. It's tricky to know what to put there because obviously most people who leave the Brethren have got religious trauma or have been spiritually abused, and yet there are others who want to hold on to some kind of a Christian faith or discover a new kind of a Christian faith. And so, we have actually popped in a couple of things in there that are just generic Christian resources like the Bible Project and Bible Gateway. They're just fantastic online resources for anybody wanting to explore the Bible more. And in fact, you know, people in there probably, I encourage them to use them, and they might make their readings and prophetic words a little bit more accurate and interesting. Grief, loss and trauma. Yeah, we've got a wee note there that sometimes people don't think of accessing grief resources when they leave the brethren because it hasn't been an actual bereavement. But yeah, whenever you look at bereavement resources, it's so relevant. And that's because, as I think it was a former JW paper I read, said it is a kind of social death, that you have gone through a kind of social death. As we know, we have lost entire families. You know, if it had been a horrific bus crash that had wiped everyone out, it would be all over the media. And yet, because it's this psychosocial death, you know, it goes untalked about. But all of us have had our whole families just annihilated. Actually, Cheryl, on that note, you know, do you want to quickly show an image there that I, you know, very crudely did years ago to try and depict what it's like when you leave. You know, you're carrying around this immense loss of everyone you knew. And it's not even like, you know, you have school friends that you can connect with, or, you know, people from your gym or your football club, because you've got nothing. Your whole community that you've had is gone. Oh, sorry, not that one actually, Cheryl.
Sorry.
Come back to that one, but sorry, I meant the one about with the family where a lot of people are whited out.
Oh, yeah. Let's grab it up here.
So in the brethren, you know, as many of us know, if you leave, your photographs are taken down off the walls. And historically anyway, you know, you would have a sticker put over your face in the brethren photo books. Or, you know, at any rate, when they reprint them, they remove any reference to you. Whereas if you've died, they'll put in there the date that you died. But if you've been withdrawn from or shut up, you're removed from the family photograph as if you never existed. You know, it's definitely a cancel culture type thing that goes on. But so some of us have seen those pictures or seen them as children growing up, you know, a family photo with the people have been withdrawn from, whited out or scratched out. And I did this a whole bunch of years ago as a reversal of that, to try and show people around me what it was like. Because as I built my new life, people would meet me and they'd just meet me as an individual, and they wouldn't realize that, you know, I came with this huge number of people in my head who I was still loving and grieving over and carrying with me, but who weren't there. And so one time I did this and shared it on my personal social media to say, you know, this is a family photo from my sister's wedding. And in this image, we're like grandparents, siblings, children. And, you know, I had just lost all of them. I must have done this since my father got shut up, actually, because I've left his face open and I've left my brother's face open to say, you know, these are the only two I've got. All the rest of them have been wiped out, you know, and you could add even more. There's just hundreds and dozens more. And, you know, I'd love to say to the brethren, you know, they say, oh, you left us and this is all your fault. You know, they put the blame with us. But I keep saying to them, you're the one who practiced separation from evil. These are your beliefs. They're not my beliefs. I could have a cup of tea with you. I could have you in my life. You know, it's you doing this. It's not us. At risk of my battery, you know, I'll show you. Look, I have got photos of you. That's my family there when we were kids. I've got photos of you around my house, you know. If I, you know, dash down to my hallway, I've got family photos of when we were all together in the brethren. You know, I've got photos on my wall of my siblings. And, you know, I would say to them, look, my heart is open to you. My door is still open to you. This is not my choice. This is you doing that, you know. They say you left, you've caused this. I'm like, my door is open to you. You're on the walls of my house. Am I on the walls of your house? You know, is my picture up at your house? If not, why not? And then ask yourself, who is causing this?
I think that's really potent. And, you know, as you know, all of us are ex-brethren, we've got, can't remember what the word, we're so used to this idea that you can just white someone out, you can put a
Yeah.
sticker over their face. But when you kind of look at it now, what a horrific thing to do to someone that you love, to your own parents, your own children, to actually scratch them out of a photo. It's hatred, isn't it? I mean, it would represent, to anyone who didn't understand the religious background, they would say, well, you must hate that person if you can't even have their face in your photo book. It's almost,
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
almost
Yeah.
like
That's a
voodoo
good
or
point.
something.
You know how they
It's
say it's
terrible.
everybody's choice. That proves it right there by all the books, the photo books that are sent out to everybody that everybody has to purchase. If it was up to each individual's choice, then it should have, those families should be able to be given that choice, whether they want to say they have another daughter, they have another son, right?
Yeah.
But it's not in there. Every locality in these photo books that everybody has to buy, everybody who is left, you will not find them in there. So it just proves right then and there in black and white that it is not every family's choice. It is not a personal choice. It's just not.
Mm.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a blatant denial of, again, like I said, I think I could do their PR better for them, but their foundation is separation from evil. And I know, Bruce Hales is adding other things onto that foundation now, like pursuit of money and stuff. But, that is their doctrine that is behind the severe ostracism that they practice, and they'd be better to just own that and stop hiding it. It's their religious doctrine, and it's their practices that come from that particular interpretation of the Bible. They need to own up to it. Yeah. So if I
agree.
go back to the screen, we've nearly finished there. I'll finish off that. Hey, shall I finish off doing that? Sorry, I'm jumping back and
absolutely. Yep.
to keep doing that. Yeah. Okay. Let's jump back to that. So yeah, we've got alcohol and addiction. We've got rainbow and LGBTQI plus support resources. And then, I wanted to mention this because I feel like this is a super important point about therapists. So we know that the Brethren have, at least in the past, had particular psychologists who they have recommended people go to. And there've been some concerning reports about that. I haven't personally verified any, but I know there have been a couple of former members who alleged that they had to agree that the psychologist could send reports of those personal sessions to Sydney or to, obviously to Bruce Hales or to some form of the leadership over there, which I think is incredibly concerning. And again, I asked just how much individual choice did the person seeing the therapist have in that decision. You're in a really vulnerable position when you're going to see a therapist, and to be told that this is expected of you, I don't think you've got a lot of power to resist that personally. But so a point that we've got here on our website under therapists is that we say, be cautious of any person or any organisation at all, even if they're a registered health professional. Be cautious of them if you think that they are affiliated with your high demand religious group. If they've been recommended to you by elders or leaders in your high demand religious group, be careful of them. We don't know what goes on or what those relationships might be like, but proceed with caution. I also encourage anybody thinking of leaving to try and establish a relationship with a counsellor before you leave. It could be a really valuable bridging person who can, support you throughout the transition rather than just after you've left. So then I'll quickly hop over to the international site because it's got a bunch more resources that I think are super cool. There's so much out there that you could put onto resourcing. You could spend a lifetime reading and watching and listening to this stuff. So we've tried to keep it really simple and just to some key basic things at the moment. And I'm sure one day in the future, somebody will start a really big online library of resources. But if I jump into the resources of the international site, this has got a whole lot of other resources. So it's got a specific category here, resources relevant to the Brethren. And so that's got things like the social media Facebook pages. It's got a listing of a select number of top biographies and memoirs. It's got podcasts. Get a Life is somewhere down there. Yep, there's Get a Life. Recommended podcasts, documentaries. It's got a few academic articles that are listed there that are, really interesting if somebody wants to do more in-depth study. Historical stuff, like I think that's got, The Separation from Evil, Darby's paper. So many current brethren have never even read it, and kind of fair enough, because it is difficult to read and convoluted. He's got a very bizarre, convoluted style of writing, but that's there. Legal records. This is important. It's got the Preston Down Trust legal records that are publicly available. Again, so many current members, even in the UK, have got no idea, it seems, of what's in this document. And I wonder if partly that's because it was 2014 now. There's actually been almost 10 years when I think in there it hasn't been talked about, and there's younger ones coming up that are not as aware of it, that haven't read it, that it's difficult to find the UK PBCC website, which it's got it listed on there because legally they were required to, I understand. But that's a really, really important document, the faith and practice document that the brethren agreed to sign or they would lose their charitable status. It outlines so much in there for former members of the brethren. It says that individuals are allowed to have social interaction with former members. It says that former members are allowed to go to funerals, things like that. Like, check it out, people. You've got a lot more rights than what you realise, both people in there and people without.
Yeah.
And then we've got, a whole lot of resources that are not specific to the brethren, because we are supporting people who are leaving the JWs or groups like Shinshon J, a Korean cult-like group here in New Zealand. So, we are, there's so much overlap across the world with so many other difficult groups that are difficult to leave. And, we're stronger together. We're stronger when we link arms. Yeah. There's so much overlap. I think, lots of the brethren mindset is that we're special and we're unique. And, I confess that even after leaving, it took me a while, because I'd still think, my experiences of leaving this group and all of that are unique, and I'm alone and no one understands them. But, oh my goodness, you connect, have a look on social media or online with the ex-JW movement or the ex-Mormon movement. We have got so much overlap with their stories. It's almost cookie cutter, even down to, I'm seeing a lot of ex-Mormons and ex-JWs talk about how it's no longer a religion. It's a corporation masquerading as a religion.
Yeah.
And there's just so much overlap with the particular path that the PBCC have gone down. Huge accumulation of property and financial assets, huge dedication to protecting the reputation, right down to, even I learned the other day about the Mormons, that I was laughing because I wondered if they had the same PR people as the brethren. But the Mormons were called Mormons, and then it was about the same time as the brethren changed their name. I think it was about 2014. They suddenly changed their name to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This huge mouthful, just like the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, and carefully putting in this word church there, because they were trying to get away from this negative association with Mormon, to say, oh no, we're a mainstream church, and let's put Jesus's name in there and all that kind of thing. And they've turned into this huge mouthful and created confusion, which I think is exactly, some of what we've seen happen with the Brethren's name change. There's all of a sudden a desire to put the word church in there when, J&D would turn in his grave. He didn't want that term at all. So anyway, there's lots of other books, memoirs, documentaries and things that are not specifically brethren related, but that are very eye-opening and super interesting. So check out our resources. There's lots there to enlighten you. So I think that's a tour of the web.
Can you show the people on here how they can support the Olive Leaf Network?
For sure. So there's three main ways that you can support us. You can join us. So no matter where you are around the world, you can join us as part of our network of volunteers and peer support people. we've got a whole lot of different ways that people can provide support, and some of those we're still in the process of establishing. But yeah, you know, everyone's got something different to offer. Like some people, some people might have physical housing where someone could go and stay. Others, it's, you know, that ability to offer friendship and a listening ear. You know, no matter who you are, if you're a former member, we would love to hear from you. And like, we need you. Yeah, it's, you know, like I said before, you might have gone on and established your own life and have sorted yourself and built a wonderful new community and, you know, or had business success or whatever it is. But there are still people falling off the back of the bandwagon who need support and help. And remember back to those who were kind to you when you first left. And I'm sure you'll remember that how important they were to your journey. And ask yourself, is it time for me to make myself available to do this for others? You can donate. We're running a Give a Little fund, which Get a Life might be able to share that link there. We're running that.
Definitely send we'll share the link in the description.
Oh, sorry, the end of April. Sorry. Yeah, we're running that to the end of April. It has cost us a lot of money to set this up, to do it formally, professionally, to get legal advice from charity lawyers, to pay for good, secure website hosting and design, and for our email systems, all that kind of thing. So you know, you can rest assured we will not be using the funds to fly around in a private jet or to drink top label whiskey. Yeah, we're a registered charity. There's accountability with the funds there, and it's going for a good cause. We do need that money. I wish I could click my fingers and ask for how much was it through the vision thing they were asking for?
It was only $500 million.
Oh, only $500 million, even though PPE, COVID contracts, everything. Actually, I'd like to put that challenge out to any Brethren listeners who might be watching now, especially if you're in a position of leadership in the Brethren. Hi, extra special welcome to you. I would love to remind you that the Rapid Relief Team's values are, I think, community, compassion, and support, is it something like that? I would love to say we here at Olive Leaf would love to see a significant and generous donation from the Rapid Relief Team as a sign of your compassion and support for those who have left or been made to leave your movement and who are in need of compassion and community and support, because you have stripped those things from us.
And if there's insiders that want to donate anonymously, that can be done. We even had that with Heidi's GoFundMe, that there was insiders that donated to it. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So just so you know, that if you're silently waiting for your time and your moment to leave, and you want to help out and have the funds to do so, by all means, you can donate anonymously.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, and lastly, you can support us by speaking up. Like, follow us on social media, follow us on LinkedIn. We know the Brethren are on LinkedIn, so feel free to share us around on LinkedIn as well. I'm trying to figure out. There's probably some ways that we can connect more with the Brethren on LinkedIn. But there are lots of different things you could do to help us to spread awareness about our network and to share us with people who you think might need our support. So lots of ways to support us, and we would love to have support in any way.
That's beautiful. It's such an important website to have been done up and done with such thorough investigation. I know you've spent countless hours on making sure that you've been getting the advice and the proper guidance in doing this in a way that was done to last generations.
Yeah, we hope so. And like, one of our values is integrity, and that is really important to us, that we do things thoroughly and we do them well, and that kind of we are who we say we are. That I think especially when you're a leader of a group where there's been certain narratives pushed and you're not sure if it's the real one or not, we do want to say, hey, who you see on this website, that is who we are. We don't have anything to hide. That is who we are.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resource, and if this had only been around when I left, and I'm sure a lot of others would say the same thing, how wonderful that would have been. So there's never been, I mean, in one sense, the cage has never been tighter, in the sense that the brethren are now controlling so many aspects of members' lives, but there's also never been a resource like this, like there is now, to help anyone who has made the decision to leave. So, thank you, Lindy, very much for this hard work.
Yeah, I think we live, I think there's, we live in a really interesting day and age, don't we? Particularly with the advent of social media, where, but there's, a whole lot of other big cultural shifts that I think are happening, like, an acknowledgement that, for example, of the validity of victims' experiences, and the encouragement of those experiences to challenge the powers that be. We live in a society where that is encouraged at the moment, and that's incredibly helpful for those of us who feel that we have been victims of a powerful movement or person bigger than us. I think, there's a much wider awareness on a global scale of the very real effects of religious trauma and spiritual abuse, that it's a real thing. It's a particular form of trauma all of its own, because it's not just certain things that might have happened, such as, church discipline or situations that have fostered sexual abuse or those types of things, but it's also that it was often done in the name of God, which, if you're a person who believes in God, there's no higher authority to appeal to. And so it's terribly frightening to be told, for example, that you can't leave or you'll lose your salvation. Like, it does add a profoundly disturbing and abusive layer to other types of abuse, to be doing harmful things in the name of a person's God. Yeah. So it's incredible that on a wider scale, there's a whole lot more awareness and research going into that, that we can be tapping into and drawing on. So it does feel like we're part of a much bigger global movement.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think so many people are ready to talk and get the burdens off their chest that they've had to hold tight and near and dear, right? I know for myself, I mean, that was, even though it was so hard to do and it's so much to unpack, it was just such a relief to finally be able to just get it out there, and just literally unzip it and take it off. And that's what a lot of people are finding, that they're finally being able to give a platform and spaces to be able to talk about the things that haunt them.
Yeah. And to bring stuff out from under the rug, and let's talk about it and deal with it and support each other. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Lindy. It's just been, this was so needed. This was just so needed. A website like this was just so needed. And I want the listeners and viewers to understand that you don't have to just be from New Zealand to seek help from this website. This is, Lindy's got her hands in a lot of buckets, and her team, that you don't have to just be from New Zealand.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah. We've got networks sort of all over the show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if this is a much safer place for you to come on and do it through versus Facebook or an email through different sources, then just know that this is very global. It's very worldwide. Anybody can email in here and ask for help. Yeah.
And I think, I think I'd also encourage, I heard somebody, I've got a friend who used to support people leaving prison, and he said that they tried to get people to build 7 positive connections or 7 positive relationships as they transition from prison back into mainstream society. And I loved that, because I thought, hey, we know 7's a special number. But no, I thought, even, if you're thinking of leaving or you have recently left, build yourself even 3 or 5. You might reach out to us, but look for 2 or 3 others as well. It might be an old school teacher, it might be a neighbour or a work colleague. But yeah, set yourself that goal. Don't do it alone. There's a beautiful quote. I can't remember if I can find it in the Thinking of Leaving book here, but I guess it would be a good one to conclude on. Just a reminder of I don't know, like, yes, the world can be a dangerous and a crazy place and an unsafe place, and you should take care and have your wits about you, but also it's an incredibly beautiful place with lots and lots of pockets of safe people and safe places, and you don't need to be afraid to come out into it. Here, I found the quote. It's from The Lord of the Rings, and it says, "The world is indeed full of peril, and in it there are many dark places, but there is still so much that is fair. And though in all lands love is mingled now with grief, it grows ever yet, perhaps the greater." So yeah, don't know if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, but hey, Kiwi, I can't help but be one, right?
Yeah.
That's a New Zealand
yeah,
connection,
it's true.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Okay, well,
Thank you so much, Lindy.
any other
And I'll have
questions?
the links and in the bio for everyone. There'll be the links on how to donate to the website and whatever else I can conjure up that you might want to look under with Lindy's resources. Thank you so much, Lindy.
Yes,
very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for hosting us, hosting me, and, on behalf of the Olive Leaf Network. And keep up the interesting and crazy job that you're doing there with Get a Life podcast. As we say in New Zealand, kia kaha, which means, keep strong.
Thank you. Much love to everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Ka kite.
To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me.